Hello, and welcome to Seeking Heaven, the near-death experience and other phenomena. I'm your host, Tamara Caulder Richardson, a six-time near-death experiencer, as well as evidential medium and channeler. So welcome to my channel. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe below and make sure that you try to check out my membership perks if you want to join. I have some awesome ones, including being a love leader, where we meet once a month and I do 90 minutes to 2 hours of intuitive life coaching, including spiritual guidance and channeling. So that's a terrific group of people, as well as make comments below and like. And if you're interested in a particular topic or speaker, let me know. My email is in the info section. So thanks for being here. Now, today's guest is super excited to have them. This topic is very much so, it's a trailblazer. I mean, we are really blazing the trail with this topic. So we had on last week Mark Fiorentino. We had him on talking about his unified field theory. And this is a continuation of the work that Einstein did and following his path on that and completing that and discovering the unified field theory and anti-gravity. Well, there's more to this story. And this is something that has never been done. And it's here on the Seeking Heaven channel. I'm very honored that he agreed to do this with me. And so today, Mark Fiorentino, who is a scientific researcher, he's also a philosopher and author, and he's author of Master of Reality. And this is his book that he did put out. It's quite a big book. It's amazing. And you can watch the two-part series where he does explain the unified field theory as well as anti-gravity. That's very fascinating. But today he's going to talk about his spiritual journey and how this came together from the universe, from the divine, giving him information for his research. And this episode, I want to make sure that I called it something that was fitting, but it was When Science Meets Spirituality. But indeed, he's going to talk about his spiritual journey, but he's also going to talk about how we met, all the channeled information that's come through from Einstein and so forth, and Tesla for him. And he's got he's been keeping a log of all this in evidence. So welcome today, Mark. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm enjoying this immensely. This is a very exciting time. I'm looking forward to this show today.
Oh, me too. And we have actually talked about doing this for a couple years, but it just wasn't the timing. And then you had to complete your book and your research there. And of course, you're still doing more research as well. That's continuing. So wow. Why don't you start? We met, first of all, did we meet 4 or 5 years ago?
We met in 2018.
18. Gosh, I feel like I've known you forever. Probably have. I can't imagine.
It was like 2 years before I actually finished the book.
Yeah, I remember, which I knew nothing of you when we met cold. But before we get into our time we met, because we're going to really give an inside story. This is where we're going. Let me, if you don't mind, just for a minute, I'm going to, and then let you take off. I'm just going to, let you take over from here. But this was important, and Mark and I agreed to do this because the information, I mean, this was sort of magic to us. It unfolded, and it's still unfolding. But a lot of the information that Mark got was through different people and then with me that helped him on his research. And this is to let you all know this. Channeling and the other side, getting knowledge and privilege information that, otherwise you wouldn't know, is real. I wouldn't have believed it, but it is real.
Yeah.
And the universe does watch us, God, divine, whatever you want to call it, and cares and is responding to us and responding to our mission. And this is a higher level than just mediumship. And honestly, this is where my passion is. I mean, not that I don't care about you guys, your family and your loved ones. I've read Mark, his loved ones came through. They're great people. But this is cool stuff. Anytime you're having Jesus or Einstein or Tesla or St. Ignatius giving you detailed information, it is mind-blowing and almost hard to believe at first. So this was to let people know this is real. From me, from what I do, but from Mark, who has a scientific mind. So with that in mind, let's start with your journey before we met and how all this came to be. And thanks for being here again.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, let's get into it. It's a great story, and it really links and verifies everything about our interaction with each other and mediumship and psychic abilities. This is what I think is evidence that there's something real going on here, and it really pertains to everyone, not just Tamara and I, but everyone has got something going, a mission. And I'm going to tell you my story now. It started, I'd say back in 1974, my best guess, when I was 19. Um, uh, Friends and I decided, I heard uh, a presentation at the community college where I was going. A professor of mine, Steve Goldman, talked about this place called Casadega, and it was a psychic capital of the world, of the North America. And I said, "Oh, that's cool. I'm interested in that stuff. I want to go and have what we called in that time, a fortune told." I know, don't like that sound nowadays. It's a reading now, but in that time, that's the way it was talked about. And so me and a bunch of friends went. We drove up to Casadega. It was an October, cold and blustery day, gray overcast. It was perfect for this. And we drove up in two cars. I drove one, and the other guys, football player types, were in the other one. We pulled into Casadega, and it was like nobody anywhere. It was just this town with the wind and blowing through the trees. And actually, a branch blew off a tree and hit the other guy's car, and they got scared and left. And so it was just me and this guy called Jeff Jones. Duff is what we called him. And we went knocking on doors and tried to find a psychic. And they had little signs in their yards. It was great. And
Okay.
after the third try, we found one. Her name was Martha McKay. And so the adventure really starts at this point. So I go in first, and Martha McKay was a sweet old lady, just like you would think in a novel, the psychic medium, uh, and very, very nice, just, but a little bit of, mystery in there somewhere. So I sat down, and she gave me what I would consider a very normal reading, told me about my future, um, how I was going to get married and have two kids, and they were going to be kids of this world. And she told me about I was going to get into electronics. Now, this lady had never met me, but I always had a passion for electronics as a kid. But I never got into it because of the math. I was a little afraid of the math. So I went into something else called media technology. And everything she said, this is very important, came true. The first words out of her mouth, I heard multiple times from multiple mediums. She says, "In your final days, you will be a spiritual teacher." Huh. I this is why? Because I'm just an ordinary guy, and I don't think of myself as was particularly religious or spiritual, but I accepted. I says, "Oh, okay," and I listened, kept my feet on the ground as she told me. There's something to do with how energy flows or whatever, and she gave me this nice reading, and virtually everything she said came true within the next few years. It didn't take long, actually. And then the other guy I knew went in, he did his session, and then we left. And on the way, Daytona Beach was where we were all going to meet. That was really where we were going. He says, "Well, that's something about you, Mark." And I says, "Well, what about me?" I had a normal reading, nothing unusual in it.
Mhm.
And he said, "Oh, yeah, she told me you're going to be famous someday. You're going to make a great discovery or write a book or something." I don't remember exactly what he said there. I just remembered famous discovery. So I says, wonder why she didn't tell me that directly. And that bothered me, but that stuck in my head. And I thought about it, and I came up with an answer. I says, "Because you would have asked questions, and you would have tried to dig out more information. And I don't think they wanted you to know any more than that. And that's why it was done the way it was done." And I accepted it, and it just stayed in the back of my head for the rest of my life. But I didn't really, worry about it or cogitate over it too much. I just went on, lived my life, got married, had those two children, and was pretty much very happy for quite a while before that marriage unfortunately came apart. Then what makes this more interesting is I get confirmations of what she said later on. And the next time that happened was probably only a few months later. I met a touring, I would call him a entertainer, but he had psychic abilities and he did hypnotism. So he gave two different shows sort of in one show, packed them together. But the first part was the psychic demonstration where he put stuff around his eyes so you couldn't see anything. And it was very convincing. I'm sure he couldn't. And he had us all put a question and our name in a hat, and we did that. And I came down to record it because, of course, I'm interested. And I worked at the college there at that time, and I said I want to record this for the library. So I did that. I had my tape recorder going, and so he picks the first name out of the hat, and he's all blindfolded and everything, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I says, I don't know how I know this, but I know he's got mine. I could feel it, had this tingling going on. And sure enough, he went through and he guessed my name right away, Mark. And then he went about answering the question that I had written on there. And it was about thinking about Martha and everything, which she said I had, ideas for invention. I said, well, will my invention ever happen? Will it come true? And he says, you have some question about an invention. And then he paused for a moment and he said, yes, but it will take you much longer than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me another 45 years to have it actually happen. So he was right too. And he confirmed to a certain degree what Martha was saying. There's something going on. There's something going on in the background that I can't quite see what's going on, but I'm recording all this, looking for a pattern as I go through life.
Did you have any inclination about you writing a book or anything, or was this just like, you never thought about it?
And I'll get to that in a couple of more.
Okay.
They start suggesting that I'd learn to write. Way back when, I'm talking back 30 something years ago. And I thought, I'm not interested in writing. So, but we'll get to that. So that was it for Russ. Then the next time happened, I'm going back to school. I'm leaving the college that I was working at because the pay was low and so forth. And I decided I'm going to go to electronic school because I like that. And the calculators came out. When I had a calculator, I said, I'm not going to make careless mistakes in math anymore. So I'm going to go for it. And I went back to electronic school. While I was doing that, my mother became very ill, had a brain tumor. And I was debating on whether I should just drop out of school and go help my father for a couple of years and then get back on and go finish. But I was married, so there was the whole issue of how we were going to afford to do all that and everything. But so that was what I was thinking. So I says, I need to go and talk to a psychic medium. And there just happened to be one, a very prominent one. Her name is Ann Gaiman. Very nice lady. She's now retired and she's in a retirement home at this point. And she was very prominent all over on a lot of radio shows in Florida, and eventually moved up to Virginia and was working with politicians and so forth, giving them readings or whatever. And so she was sitting in the back, and I got there before her demonstration and her talk. And as I walked up to her, she was looking at me, and she had this strange look on her face. And she says, I've never seen this before, but as you were walking up, all these angels came rushing by you in a frenzy to tell me something. And they said, don't stop school. You must keep going to school. You can't stop. And I don't remember if I even got the question out. I might have asked the question first, or I might not have. It's not clear, so I'm going to be honest. I said, I might not have asked the question, but I do remember the answer, and it was very clear don't quit school, keep going. They wanted to me to do that. And then she got up in front of the people and said, I just had this remarkable experience with this young man, how these angels all came around him and, gave this message to him. And she said it was very emotionally power packed. So I thought, what the heck is going on here?
Hmm.
I sat for the rest of the show and I heard all that. I says, why do they care whether I go to school or not? I mean, what difference? I was going to go later on anyway, but okay, something going on. Again, I'm noticing a pattern. There's something big going on, but I don't know what because nobody's telling me. It's just other than that first time. So now we talk to Ann Gaiman one more time over the telephone, and I asked she's on a radio show, and I managed to get through, amazingly enough.
Oh,
And I ask a simple question, and she answers it, whatever. And then she goes silent, and she does this very strange thing. She just starts repeating over and over again, God bless you. God bless you. And she says this like 10 times. The guy has to cut her off, and they have to go off the air.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you think that she was channeling that divine was saying,
This is what I think happened.
Like
I think,
thanking you for something you don't know what you're supposed to be thankful for yet?
I think they told her who I was and what's going on. But she knows she can't say anything. But she's saying like, "Oh, okay, he's this guy who's going to do this thing, whatever it is." So I'm, intuitively, I'm thinking, okay, that's maybe what's going on here. So there's a little more evidence. There's this is kind of a cooperation thing going on. So there's something big brewing. I don't know what. It's hard to imagine because I feel like a fairly ordinary guy. I don't know of any particularly special skills that I have, but I'm going to keep my mind open and we'll see what happens. So life goes on. I moved to North Carolina, which, by the way, I had a premonition that this is the first time I actually made a prediction. It was just, I heard James Taylor over the radio when I was living in Miami singing Carolina in my mind. And as soon as I heard that song, I said to my mother, I'm going to live there someday. I just knew it.
yeah.
And that's it. So that's just a little sidebar. So we're getting back here to the next time, which is many years now, I go without talking to a medium. I'm happily married, but things are starting to come apart. So we go to counseling. The counseling gets wind that I got this idea that I need to do something important, but I'm very concerned because my wife is spending a lot of money and I'm having trouble keeping up. And I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to do these invention ideas or whatever. So I don't have any money. So we were fighting about that, as many people do that are married. And so I mentioned it to her. She said, I know there's psychics in town. If you got something going on there, you can go to talk to her and see what's up. So I go to this psychic. Her name is June Riggs. And we meet at her hotel room. And she does some remarkable things. So this is evidence for you who are listening out there. Psychic mediums are for real. And I'm going to give you some rock solid evidence so that you know that this is really happening. And this is something that God has arranged, that has sent these people down to help us out. And so I'm talking to her and she says, your mother wants to tell you something. And so she tells me that your mother's been sitting in the yellow chair in the bedroom at night when you've been praying to her. And that's exactly what I was doing. I would imagine her, I would ask her to sit in the golden yellow chair and I would talk to her. Nobody knew that, not even my wife. There's no way she could look that up on the internet.
Right.
It wasn't even an internet yet.
Yeah.
That is
Right.
rock solid evidence as ever there could be. This is for
Personal.
real.
It's personal too. It's those personal thoughts that you don't tell people that you think that comes up in readings, and that's a great example.
That really got my attention. It says, holy cow. she's talking to my mom, who had just passed away a few years earlier. And then I don't remember how the subject come up, whether I asked a question or not, but again, this thing about this future invention idea comes up, and she says, "Yeah, but you're trying to push it. It's not. You're not. It's not the time yet. You don't have everything you need." And I says, "Okay, I don't know what I might need, but I know now. I understand what she was talking about. I needed the internet, and it didn't exist yet, and I wouldn't find that out until later when I was writing the book." And I says, "Oh, this is it," because I'm thinking to myself, I could have never done this without the internet, because it was giving me access to all this writing and all this research that is at the snap of a finger. I was able to get to,
Amazing.
rather than traveling, to libraries all over the country to get this stuff.
Mhm.
So now I said, oh, she was right. I didn't have what I needed, and the internet was what I needed. So there's one more person before I get to Tamara. Her name is Patricia Groninger. Now, after I got my divorce, I was a mental case. I was wrecked. I was just a nervous wreck. And I was going through that, and a girlfriend that was giving me tremendous problems on top of, you're already going through a divorce, and you meet somebody you think is special and nice, and then they kind of do things that kind of mess you up. And so I went get advice and wisdom. And she gave me loads of wisdom. But she also said, out of the blue, one time, she said to me, there's somebody with you today, a 9-foot tall angel. And he's here, he's from the upper parts of where God works with the universe and the creations of universes, and he's here to help you. Are you writing a technical paper? I said, huh, yes. And nobody, I didn't even bother to tell anybody, because it was so bizarre what I was writing about, that it was EPR paradox. No, hardly anybody knows about that. But it has to do with the battle between quantum mechanics and classical field theory and Einstein. And I wanted to try to understand it or explain it. So I wrote this paper. And so I'm thinking, I wonder if these angels come around for anybody that just thinks about this stuff. I don't know. I again pondered that. And I says, why would somebody dedicate that kind of, to some Yahoo from nowhere? I don't know, but I put it into the memory bank and say, this fitting the pattern again. Something's going on. And I remember asking Patty the last time I talked to her, I said, Patty, am I always just going to be a technician, or is there something more going on? She says, Mark, you wouldn't want me to tell you the whole end of the story, would you? This is going to be a surprise. And that's all she could say. So, and Patty was a great help. She got me through all that emotional stuff that was going on. Now, during this time and afterwards, I started, actually, I have to backtrack a little bit, because there's a miracle that happens, and I don't want to leave this miracle out.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Before I got divorced, I was driving home from work one day, and I come to this T intersection where I can go left or I can go right. And this is going to give you proof that there are guardian angels. No one should have a doubt about this. Spirit guides, guardian angels, whatever you want to call them. They're real. They exist. And I'm here to testify to that right now. So I'm coming up to this T section, and I made up my mind. I'm going to go left. It's the quiet roads. It's the back roads. It's peaceful, calm. It's not as direct, but it's much easier on the mind driving home. So as I'm pulling up to that intersection, I hear a voice say, don't go that way. Now, I didn't hear a voice in my head. I heard a voice right next to my left ear. A voice, like there was somebody in the car. So I whipped around to see if there was somebody in the back seat. And there was nobody there.
Wow.
And I shook it off. I says, that couldn't be. And then he says it again, don't go that way. So I'm now stopped at the intersection. I look around again. I said, the scientific mind was really, trying to understand what was happening. And I said, well, now I got to go that way because I got to see what's going on here. I need evidence. There obviously is something dangerous ahead. So instead of worrying about that, it was really stupid of me. I went that way. So I had to see what was going to happen. This is a prediction, right? Somebody is warning me about something that's about to happen in my future. So I went that way to see what it was. I said, well, if it's really bad, it's going to be a head-on collision. So I'm looking ahead the whole time. I'm very, very cautious, looking both ways, very cautious. And about 3/4 of the way there, I see this truck coming toward us. It's a 2-lane highway. There's not much of anywhere to go. And the guy in front of me, he bails out and goes into a ditch, and other cars are all, because this guy is swerving and going across the lanes
Oh,
back and forth like he's trying to hit somebody. And so the next person in line was me. So I turned the wheel as hard as I could and went screaming off into a ditch in the road. And we missed by about that much. I remember the slow motion as that truck went by me on the
oh
left,
gosh.
just missing. And I says, well, you should have listened. The next time you hear a voice tell you not to go that way, listen to them. And I apologize because I figured that has to be my guardian angel.
Yeah.
And I got the evidence I needed. So I got enough warning that it changed my behavior enough that I wasn't daydreaming or something and getting smashed to bits. But it saved my life. So I went home and I told my wife about it, and I apologized. And to this day, I still apologize to my guardian angel for not listening. That's a very unusual circumstance when you hear a voice, not just the thought in your head,
It-
but actually hear the sound of somebody speaking to you.
Wow.
So
Was it like a male or
it
a
was
female?
male. I have two. The first, Martha McKay told me, you have two spirit guides, a man and a woman.
Mhm.
And I come to learn later on, the man was in charge of keeping me safe, and the
Mhm.
woman had other responsibilities. But the man, that was his number one job. Don't let him die too soon.
Right. Wow. And this is great advice for people. I tell them all the time. I have some people, they kind of freak out and they go, oh God, I feel this in my chest. I feel this gut. I feel this kind of fear. I'm like, okay, well then go, okay, thank you, God. I'll take note of that. I will not go to the party Saturday night. Right.
Right.
Or, I mean, if you keep getting something, I got it. I've gotten that before, and it was someone creepy, and I was getting ready to walk into, I don't know, a grocery store or something to get, and I felt when you feel someone creepy looking at you, and I looked ahead, and it was someone ahead looking at me, and I go, oh, and acted like I forgot something, got in the car and left. So you need to listen to that. So, I wouldn't be upset you didn't. One thing I wanted to point out that I don't even know if you realize before we go into our little segment, our little story is, which is amazing too, because you and I, this is all an accident with us too.
Right.
And it's just been a beautiful experience, but it's amazing and it's still unfolding, is that not all psychic or mediums work with the higher realms. Okay.
Right.
Some work and some just get a few things. Oh, your mom's here, blah, blah, blah. But the ones that work at the higher realms, what is that? The angelic, heavenly, saints, Jesus realm kind of thing, saintly family. They'll get things like, oh, your mom's right here. And the angel from the so and so that's here they work with angels. Okay. And so the ones that work with this level, the fact that, and I have been to, in the years past, many years ago, to people that weren't that good. At the same time, I have worked with some that are and that are kind of like me. But the fact that you attracted quality, good quality people with gifts that work with the divine, that I think was also orchestrated.
I agree. Every part of this has been part of the plan, and we got to execute that plan. Everybody's dealt in my opinion, everybody's dealt a hand of cards, and it's up to us to play that hand as best we can. People who have a pair of deuces can win the hand. They play their hands right. And this is what life's all about to me. This is what I think is going on here. Learning how to play the cards you were dealt as best you can.
Well, the
And
fact you're a scientist and but you look at patterns, you look at patterns to things, and then you also have things in front of your face. You're like, hey, this is kind of undeniable. Maybe I should look at this. So I think you're a great person for a skeptic to look at because you look at the
yes,
facts. You just look at the facts, and yeah, and I think our story is amazing and it's still unfolding, but I feel very grateful about this before you start. So I feel very grateful to know you and that I feel, looking back on it now and let's see what you think, but that God, the divine, predetermined and set all this stuff up into this innocent little meeting and that you and I didn't know. And I consider you a really great friend now. I mean, you started as a client and then now, I consider you a good friend. And now I consider you as, helping humanity move forward like I'm doing, but in a different way. And we're still trying to figure things out, but at least our eyes are open to like, okay, what next? And trust in the universe, the plan that
right.
we both have. So I'll just let you keep
Keeping,
going. This is all
keeping
good.
an open mind is very important. And that's what I've done through this whole process. I'm a bit of a skeptic, or at least I was to start with. But hey, when somebody does things right over and over again, repeatable, that gets my attention. And these people keep getting it right. They're not missing. Now, I have talked to some psychics or psychic mediums that I could tell right away were clueless, and they didn't get anything right. They would just get, well, they were like mentalists. They were just guessing based on whatever conversation they had. And, I could tell that. But when I got a good one, I could tell immediately, this is for real. And Tamara, you're one of the best ones. This is for real. You are for real. And this is very important. All of this I'm bringing about is to show the people out there watching that there's something special going on, not just in my life, but in everybody's life. This is the same thing. It's very subtle, but if you start opening your mind to it, you'll start to catch the pattern. And that's basically what I've done through my life is I'm a pattern recognition guy. I look at life as a very elaborate, and the unified field theory problem is very elaborate SAT questions. And if you find the pattern, the answer pops up. So after I had this much helpful times with Patty Graham, I had a dream during this one. This is the first time really, other than the voice, where I predict the future. And in this dream, I just like at the you see in the old timey movies where you're there. It's like the early 1800s, and there's a caravan of gypsies. I go and there's this gypsy lady, and she tells my fortune. This is in my dream now, and I ask her a question. Who will I ever, wind up with somebody, and who will I be married, and who will the other person, the person I was dating with, be married? And she said, look into the soup in front of you, and the names will pop up in the soup, and you will see who's going to be with who. And sure enough, the name of the girlfriend and this other guy that she started seeing pops up together, and the name of me and my future wife, Suzanne, pop up. So I go to the psychic and says, I had this dream. Is this real? I mean, I don't usually do this. And she paused and she says, it's correct. This is what's going to happen. And sure enough, exactly that's what happened. Now, it took 7 more years before I met when I got back with this woman that I knew when I was in high school, and it took a lot of miraculous things for that to happen, but it did happen. And the other lady married this other guy, so that was a bit of prophecy, more evidence that you can tell the future. And eventually, I still have doubts, and I ask again, and I pray. I pray to my guardian angels. Now I'm alone in this little apartment, and I'm suffering because of the divorce and being alone. And I ask, I pray one night, I just ask, can you really see the future? How can this possibly be? It's so in motion. And how can anybody know this? So I fall asleep with that prayer. And then I have this dream, another dream, and it's very lucid. And the there's colors in it. And I don't usually dream in color. And it's just me walking in the parking lot going to work. And as I'm walking, I see this beautiful sunrise. And I look down and I see this shiny dime laying on a white stripe in between two cars in a parking lot. And then I wake up. I says, huh, that's a kind of a funny dream, isn't it? And then I fall back to sleep and I forget about it. Wake up next morning, drive into work, park my car, and the way I walk in is kind of random because it's a big lot. Sometimes I park on this side, sometimes I park in the other. It's random. So I get out of the car and I'm walking in and I look at that sunrise. And I says, this looks familiar. And then I look down, there's a shiny dime, heads up on the white stripe, just in the part, and then it all rushed back into my head. Oh my God, I dreamed this last night. So I can tell the future. So somebody heard my prayer
Yes, they did.
and they made this all happen to prove to me why it was so important that I know that you can tell the future. I guess it's because I really needed to believe what Martha McKay said. I needed to have faith because I was beginning to lose faith because my life was going so badly. And so they answered that prayer. So know this, when you pray, they always hear your prayers.
Oh, yes.
So you might not get, an answer you're hoping for or expect. They hear your prayers and they do what is the right thing and the necessary thing to do. And in some cases, that miracle will happen. So be prepared.
Right.
So that is an interesting event. And trying to think if there was any more after that. I had a lot of, yes, there was one more, very important one. And this is more evidence, so listen carefully. I'm still suffering. I'm in that little apartment, a tiny 900 square foot apartment. And one night I just fall asleep. I'm in such great despair and wondering if I'm ever going to find happiness. And I fall asleep. And then I awaken in the middle of the night. My eyes are still closed. I'm awake and I feel this buzzing in my head. And I feel, this is like, I've had this a couple of times before, and it's usually some sort of a psychic thing. And I'm just going to remain still and see if I can hear anything or see anything. And I seem to be able to see right through my eyelids, and I see these two pinkish orange objects, humanoid figures moving around the room. And one comes up to me and I feel somebody squeezing my hand. I mean, I feel it. So there's another sense involved here, the sense of touch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
far I've had hearing, touch, sight, and even eventually smell in another one that happens much later on. But I feel this squeezing in my hand, and then I hear this distortion of voice saying something, and it sounds just like this. Zhing. I said, well, I need to concentrate here because I can't make out what they're saying. I feel the squeeze, then I hear zhing. So this happens repeatedly, and then I listen, and then all of a sudden the voice clears up, and I can hear what they're saying. And after they squeeze my hand, I hear her say, "Did you feel that? Did you feel that?" And I says, "Yes." And I think in my, I know I don't have to talk. I know there's telepathy. Yes, I did. I felt that. It's amazing. You're here. You're really here. And that was just to show me that they're there. They're always with us. They're never apart from us.
Yes.
People out there, listen and know this for sure. You're never alone.
Yeah, they're here right now.
They're here right
They're
now.
here right now. They're here. Who's here? Well, your team guide of people, your guides, your helpers, your loved ones in spirit, your angels, your any kind of people that you're working with, masters, whoever. If you love, Jesus, he's here. If you love Buddha, he's here. I mean, Mother Mary, they're all here. They're always consciously aware of your needs and your upsets and wants. And one of the things I do want to mention, like when I get, if you want to call it prophecy, oh, that's a lot of responsibility. I don't like using that word, but if I get it, when I see something, sometimes they'll give me seasons when it may happen. They don't usually say time because there is no time, but they'll say based on your seasons. And they'll say 2 seasons of fall or whatever. They'll show me this way. But a lot of times I don't know when it's going to happen. It could be years. And I think that's on purpose. I don't think we're always supposed to know the exact time of things.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
So
So yeah. Now I had a few more other little things. A pet came back after it died and let me know that they were there, and I could smell the pet that time. I could feel it jump on my chest, and it was a nice, comforting thing. And then it was over. So these instances that I have, these psychic things, they're very rare, and they're usually just triggered because they're answering a prayer or something you need to know. You need to
right.
hear that or see that or whatever. And it's a beautiful thing. It's not a scary thing. Uh, and,
That's
and, and then,
very good point. I'm real before we jump into our thing, I want to answer. I know this is a very big exclusive is conversation, about this channeling topic and all of this, which by the way, FYI, I'm still coming out with this. I mean, it was difficult coming out with I was between two worlds and family. I always saw them and people say, "Oh, that's bad," and blah blah blah. Jesus talked to Moses and what was it? I don't know, several characters in the Bible. They had long been gone. I mean, they're not dead. They're in another realm, and things have been changed. Written words. We won't say anything. But the thing is, how can God make mistakes like this, especially if you're working for the greater good? I find that very hard to believe. And God doesn't make mistakes who you are. But this whole channeling thing, I wouldn't have believed it is possible, but I trust and love God. And I was open. And because of that, and this, everybody can be like this. If not coming from a place of fear, but appreciation, gratitude, knowing you're protected and loved, you're not alone. You won't be steered in the wrong direction if you have this attitude. And this sort of happened to me, this channeling. It had been on and off. I didn't really know what it was. I got a kick out of it, I guess, when different saints or Mother Mary would show up in readings. But this is a whole different level what happened with Mark. And I've never revealed the whole thing till now. But now I'm talking to ETs and Chiron with evidence because they know, what do they know about me? They know I spent 8 years of my time and money, right, to get training. So they know the evidence is important to me. They know that Mark's a scientist. He's got his mind like that. So he needs evidence. I need evidence because that's important to me. So what do? They come through and they give evidence to me in some way. And sometimes I don't see it right off. I have to be patient. But then I go, oh my goodness, this is real. I
well,
just found an article or whatever. Yeah.
they gave a lot of evidence for me from your readings. A lot of some stuff I definitely want to touch on, because
Okay.
now we're at 2018, and I haven't seen a psychic in 20 something years.
Really?
Yeah, there's a big
What
gap.
is I don't know, guys. I want you to know, watching this happening right here, right now, right here. I mean, I know Mark, but he's busy. I'm busy. He's doing interviews. I'm doing interviews. We're busy, even though, we've stayed in touch. But some of this is new for me hearing for the first time. I want you to know that this is not rehearsed, correct?
Right, yeah, this is
Okay.
it. We got a mission. We're going to do some communicating tonight. So I'm saying, from the year 1995, maybe, not even that, maybe 94, until 2018, I had no need to go to a psychic medium. For my life was going good. I met my second wife through a dream I was inspired to call her out of the blue after some 20 something years of not seeing her. And everything happened, and the prophecy was fulfilled.
And
So
she's a lovely woman. I've met her
it was
over
good
Zoom and in
angel.
person, and she is a very sweet person.
I'm very happy. very grateful, and I tell her every day. Probably a little too much. It's probably driving her crazy.
No, you can never tell someone too much that you love them. So, sometimes we have to see the opposite of not being with the right person. So when we're with someone loving and kind, we really appreciate it. So,
So God came through again and answered both our prayers, which, by the way, I found out we both made the same prayer. I thought was
so
very
romantic.
unusual. I remember praying one night. I told the Lord, I says, I hope I can find somebody. I have so much love that I want to give, and I want to find somebody that loves me just as much. She winds up making almost word for word the same prayer that she said. And I thought, well, that is really interesting. We made the same prayer, and then that came true. That was really nifty. Not
You
an
know,
accident.
right.
It's yeah, it's for real. So
I
now,
prayed something similar for my husband. I said, I want someone who loves me just for me, all of it. And then I had a list I wanted. I was very young because I just knew I was like, oh, it wasn't so much husband, the word husband, just uh, someone, a companion in life, and someone that was funny, this and that, creative, smart, blah, blah, blah. I write down the list. And he was I didn't really have a look I was asking for except for tall and dimples. That's it. It really that was it. That was a lot in between. And he hit every single one in ways that were better than I could have imagined. And he had the same prayer. Of
yeah,
course, he didn't ask for tall and dimples. He asked for short and dimples and brown hair.
I
So
love that
it's
magic.
interesting. Isn't that
Yeah,
interesting?
yeah, I love that magic. It's makes life really enjoyable and uplifting.
Mhm.
It gives you hope.
Yeah.
And I hope people out there listening get that. If you're having struggles, it's going to get better. Just keep praying, and,
Mhm.
and you're not alone.
Right.
So
Ab
now we get to 2018, and I finally have a problem that can't be resolved through ordinary means and methods. And it's a fluke. It's a real fluke to get back to looking for a psychic medium. It was the winter time, and I made a fire in a fireplace, and I went out of the room for just a minute. So the room was empty for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. In that time, a bat comes down the chimney, even with the fire going, comes out of there and flies upstairs and parks itself up in a corner of the hallway. And for some reason, we almost never go up there now that the kids are all gone. But my wife went up there for something, saw the bat, came running down. I got to go get the bat. So I got some gloves on, and I know you don't want to get scratched or bit by a bat because they have rabies. They can have rabies,
Yeah.
and so I trapped it in this cat container thing, and I did a big mistake. I just let it go.
Mhm.
And when I let it go, I saw it was struggling, and it's, oh no, I hope it wasn't sick, because if it's sick, bad, it's got rabies, and then. But no, I wasn't scratched and I wasn't bit, so I thought I was okay. So I was washing out the container that I had, and I saw some like spit or some fluid in there, and I had my glasses on, but as I was spraying, this water sprayed up and got real close to my eye. Might have went in. I don't know. And I'm thinking, "Oh, I wonder if I could catch rabies from the saliva." And I go look it up on the good old internet, and it says, "Oh yeah, you can." And now I'm in a panic. So I call the board of health, and say, I think I need the rabies shot. Can I come? Did they scratch you? No. Did they bite you? No. And they have a bunch of questions. And I said, no, but this is what happened. It could be possible. Maybe I should get, no, you don't need it. And they talked to me for like, they were a very nice lady, talked to me for about a half an hour and calmed me down. And I says, well, all right, because I know I only got 7 days at the most, but since it's up here, probably less. Uh, but I
And
couldn't.
it's lethal, right? It's lethal if you get bit.
Oh, read about rabies. It's horrible. It's probably
Really?
the worst way you can die.
I
It is
didn't know that. Okay.
extremely painful, and it's like your brain just catches fire, and you just it gets so frenzied and everything goes in.
Mhm.
All your control of all your body just breaks down. You know, your heart control, your breathing, everything is
Gosh.
just, it's horrible. I've only heard of one person surviving. It's like pretty much 100% kill rate. So it's not something, you might get through it. You're not going
Mm-mm.
to get through it.
That's
So,
all.
you know, reading all that, it just got me into a panic. And I says, I got to know for sure. I need to find, you know, they're not going to give me the shot. And, and so I just got to find out. So I went to look for Patty Groninger's name. Now it's been 25 years. She was already pretty old. So she's gone. I don't know. And I'm looking around in the internet in the
Mhm.
Charlotte area. And then Tamara's name comes up.